Another good story is Babyteeth, which dropped on IFC, Video on Demand, VOD, uh, starring Eliza Scanlon and Ben Mendelsohn, Toby Wallace. I think lesser known of those three um,
Who
big ones.
plays the
Then
mom?
Essie Davis.
There you go.
Yeah. Um, you know, Going into this movie, I had very little knowledge of it, and I just left this movie feeling like this was a total delight and really moving movie, and also probably my favorite Ben Mendelsohn role, uh, maybe ever? Question
Wow.
mark. I found him to be super just moving in this role as this grieving dad who's trying to like hold the family together while he's also falling apart. But um, how did you feel about Babyteeth?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that stands out. Obvious things to like. It's the debut film from Shannon Murphy. She probably most famously directed some episodes of Killing Eve, but it's one of those you kind of like indie films that you can tell is like a debut or a young filmmaker's first few movies because it's trying to avoid convention and
Mm,
predictability and stuff like that. And I think it does really succeed in that because Babyteeth is a movie about a sick, dying kid, but it's not like all the other ones where like they try and make you feel really sad about it. And there's all these cliche moments. It's not that kind of story. And you kind of have this duality with her parents who also seem to be grieving and medicating in maybe a more uh, less taboo fashion via pills and whatnot, right? And uh, whenever you think the plot's going to go in a direction that uh, would wrap it up cleanly, it doesn't do that. And the visuals are also pretty arresting, I'd say. There's, I think,
mm,
the dance scene where like there's some kind of like blurry shots and whatnot. Uh, yeah, I think in general because it's not your average sick girl dramedy, it seems to stand out to me, and I think the ending scene on the beach is
yeah.
is, is particularly effective. So yeah, Babyteeth, not something that was on my radar either. Surprisingly, this had already been shown at festivals before. I'm surprised it
Mhm.
took this long to get get released, but yeah, I hope a lot of people check this out because this is yeah, it just kind of different, kind of interesting, and yeah, there's a lot to like about it.
And I think we all knew Eliza Scanlon she's got the chops, man. I mean, we saw her in Little Women, saw
Mm-hmm.
her in Sharp Objects,
Yeah.
both I think very impressive turns, and I think she's great throughout this as Mila, the main character who is dying of cancer, and um, trying to navigate this romance with this older drug dealer kid played by
Mm-hmm.
Toby Wallace, who they really like ugly him up for this. If you like
Yeah,
look at some
I
of his
do.
pictures online, he's like a very attractive man, but I think it's that mullet and that like scum stash that he has throughout, just really effective in making him look like this kind of low life drug dealer. But seeing how them kind of finding each other brings out certain aspects of who they are and what they're looking for at that certain time. And I think the seeing the parents work through their grieving process in this was probably the most moving part to me. I think Mila and Eliza is just a vehicle for the growth of all the other characters. Like, because you obviously know that her trajectory, she's going to die. That's what the movie is about. But seeing how Henry and Anna, the parents, work through this stage of denial and leave my daughter alone, like why are you doing this to her, to being like, okay, she obviously needs you as she goes through this part of her life, and coming to terms with that, and how her happiness is kind of tied into this thing that they actively would be against usually, is really fascinating. And um seeing them deal with it in their own way. Ben Mendelsohn plays this therapist or psychiatrist, I guess, who's just prescribing all this medication left and right for people. Um,
Including to his own wife.
yep. And she's taking all these medications to pretty much numb herself, and he's like hooking up or making out with the pregnant neighbor because he's kind of feels like he's losing his marriage, losing his daughter. It's very, very fascinating. And that last scene, man, you mentioned it, beautifully shot, visually striking, but the way that Ben Mendelsohn just kind of like goes through all that pain on his face without really saying much, I was choked up watching that. I thought it was incredibly effective and moving. Um, what else stood out to you about this movie? Anything in particular?
Uh, yeah. Speaking to the convention again, Moses, his kind of presence, especially in the really first hour of the movie, when the way you meet him and he asks for money, and then when he breaks into the house later and seems to come and go with Mila as he pleases, you're not really sure what the intentions of the character are, and it ends up becoming a love story of sorts, but not in the traditional way where they just kind of fall for each other. And I really liked, as you said, that the parents kind of just accepting that they need to just let her be happy because she's not going to be alive that long.
Mm-hmm.
Is that honestly kind of some deep shit, And especially watching them grapple and not just immediately come to that conclusion. I think it makes for engaging storytelling. And then towards the end too, when she's telling him to suffocate her and just end it, and he's like, I don't want to do this, and they almost do it, right? And then she soon dies anyway. It's like, again, it's not where you expect it to go once they've kind of come together and been accepted by the parents and all that. So, I think the middle parts of the movie when they're like kind of following each other, it's kind of hazy. Yeah. And that's probably some of the weaker stuff for me, but also has some of the best visuals. So, for me, it's just the beach scene though. That's the hallmark for me. And as you said, with Scanlon, immense talent thus far. Cool. This is an Australian film.
Yeah.
Just about everyone there is Australian, or I think Toby Wallace moved to Australia when he was a young boy as well. So that's kind of cool too. I hope this is a big deal over there.
Yeah, I really liked that party scene. Felt very, very like realistic for a party. I feel like where it was like in this small place, like kind of like weird lighting and people like just like hanging out in the kitchen, like drinking. Like it. And yeah, people are dancing. Maybe that's not always like how every party goes down, but this one I just felt very real. And I think Shannon Murphy has a good sense of like creating these spaces, even if like at the end when they're doing like the holiday together, that celebration together, when the neighbor gets goes into labor. I wasn't really sure how they all came together. It felt a little strange to have Moses's family, who it seems like he just reconciled with pretty quickly, to now come together with that family and the neighbor as well. But some really memorable scenes that really like bring you back to times and moments in there in this movie. So I think a really impressive debut from her. Check this one out. It's only $8 or $7 on video on demand. So you don't have to shell out the whole 20, get two people, and you're paying $3.50 for that.